what you'll find is most people will go do sticky notes. They'll watch 5 YouTube videos and get pumped up about it. They'll see the sticky notes, and then they'll also have that feeling. And then 2 weeks later, nobody's calling or texting that seller. If you go knock 100 doors in foreclosure and cannot get a deal, I will pay you 10 grand if you can prove you knocked 100 doors. This is interesting. So I'm at this RV park, Beargrass, right? We're closing on it on March 15th. Was anybody on the RV training today? So I go to the park before the training and I run into the guy managing the park. Tall, super cool kid. And he walks up, he sees Roberto, he sees a Hispanic guy, he's like, what y'all doing here? And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be the new owner in a couple weeks. He's like, oh, okay, cool. Anything I can answer for you, get into a conversation. I said, what do you do here? You want to stay on as the handyman? He goes, I'm not going to be the handyman. I manage this whole entire park that you're buying. I'm like, oh. So I thought the owners were managing. He goes, dude, the owners don't hang out here at all. Like, I run the entire thing. Cool. So we get into a conversation. I start understanding the seller and why the seller's selling. The property generates $600,000 a year in revenue. They have it paid off free and clear. So after expenses, they net in their pocket 400 grand. That's after this guy's payroll, everything. They make 400 grand. The park is shut down 6 months a year.
Wow.
And they take home 6 months, they produce enough money to basically take home about $32,000 every single month. Of what? Like they ain't doing anything. Okay, so my point is this. You are very different than those sellers. Like some sellers are like, I just don't want the mental gymnastics of knowing I own a park and I have to worry about liability. I don't want it, and I've hit my financial thermostat, so let's take our money off the table, right? In my mind, I'm like, buy more parks, do more things, go. They're like, we made a couple $1 million, we're done, and they're gonna live up the road and just chill and watch Murder, She Wrote every single day, right? Or whatever TV show. Okay, so my point is everybody's got their own little motivations, and they were so excited about us closing that they asked us, and this blows my freaking mind. We were at 3.7. They asked us, if you can close sooner, we'll give it to you at 3.2. They took $500,000 off the price point because they were so excited about retiring. Wow. $500,000. You are not them. You're super motivated. You're in the build phase of your life, right? They're in a different phase of like, nope, I've hit my number, I'm good. I don't want to do the thing, I'm out. Okay, the challenge is you are in a distress situation because of recent business stuff. By the way, that's going to happen to me 10 more times in my life. It's going to happen to you 10 more times in your life. That ain't going to go away. We all got to be used to that, right? Bad business partners, somebody screws us on an invoice, whatever it may be. And you've gotten through it and you've been super resilient, which is freaking awesome. So the only thing you're missing really is resources to go and do what you want at that park. You're here, maybe there's somebody who wants to partner with you on it. I would argue with you that I'd rather you go chase a prettier rabbit that has more meat on the bone. Because you're going to continue, to be honest, you guys are going to drive home together, so let me make it really awkward.
Joe, he's been a resource.
He's been a great resource. In his mind, this is an opportunity for him to go and do something cool for his family. And I would argue with him that it's not worth chasing up the tree because you guys are both in the same mode. The seller I'm buying the RV park is not in my mode anymore. They're in the mode of, I'm done. You guys are in the same mode right now, which is, let's go build, right? So the only way for him to be able to make this deal work is if he partners with you on it, but in the same amount of time, energy, and effort put on something else, you're gonna make way more money than partnering with him. It's better that if he just pushes resources to you, shake hands, you guys collaborate for a lifetime, but you continue to own the property is probably the best thing to do. When you start doing a hyper-specific project, you just bought yourself a job. You already know the property, you already own the property, it's better for you to keep it. This would become a job for you, and you'd come back to me in 2 years and go, all right, I finally got the deal done, it's up and operational, it took us 2 years, I'm ready to get back on the horse. And I would then tell you, go buy things that are scalable, like RV park, mobile home park, small multifamily deal. Go buy something that's scalable that doesn't need you to go, let me figure out, do I move the chicken coop over here? Like, it's just not scalable. Some of y'all come to me on Zooms or like people ask me questions, go, okay, So I was driving down the road and I saw this guy and he was fishing, and this guy then told me about this guy's property over here and this happened. And it's really weird. There's 17 different properties on this one parcel and I don't know what to do. I'm like, run. Go find the scalable thing. Anybody guilty of this? Trying to force, yeah, me too. In the beginning, it's fun. Like what you're doing right now, it's fun. You're exploring, you're understanding things. But when you want to get to the point where you really want to be done, right? You want to retire, you want to make so much money, you don't have to worry about money. It's not going to be done in your type of project because you already own it. You can magnify it, but you will not become financially free by owning that property. Okay, so sober living makes a lot of money. And I'll give you a good example. Like, I don't want to be the operator of the sober living. That is a drain on your time. If you are smart, maybe what you do is you consult for them and go, hey, if I can get you above a certain baseline and I can consult with you, I want 10% of the profit share or something like that. My sober living, it was really interesting. Like, so I owned a dozen sober livings for a long time. And there's always something crazy going on in a sober living facility, always, right? The type of people it attracts. Some of them are fanatical, awesome, magical human beings. Other ones are aggressive and want to fight. So I then found somebody in the sub-2 community about 5 years ago named Patrick. He's like, can I just sublease all of your properties and I just run my sober livings in there? I'm like, who in their right mind wants to do that? And he goes, well, I was in sober living and it's what I want to do with my life. I'm like, thank goodness, here, take all of them. And so I sublease to him. I make way more money per house than I did when I was operating them myself. And he knows all the tricks and all the ways to get insurance money and whatever else, and I don't want to deal with that. I'd rather just go buy more real estate and I'll make more money that way. Whatever that city is, there's 10 sub-2 members in that city that will help you find the deal. So you don't have to be the person finding the deal. You don't have to be the one cold calling, negotiating, etc. So once you find that city, you want to find the Jordan, the Jennifer, the Pace, the Anthony, the so-and-so of that city, and then they bring the deals to you, and they'll help you structure them on creative finance so you don't have to go to banks, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, so the way the community is structured is I structured it really, really specifically that every portion of the community amplifies the other portion. So you've got technically 4 parts plus kind of a faculty, so to speak. So think about it as a college. If you go to a college, you're going to have the business department, you're going to have the arts department, the whatever department, okay? Our community is sub-2, that's who finds the deals primarily. Gator is who funds those deals. So I look at Chris Sheff. Chris Sheff is a good example of like multiple layers. He's in sub-2, he's in Gator, and then also our faculty, which runs the campus, the main leaders of the nation, is Owners Club. So you've got Jordan Reyes, Jennifer, you've got a whole bunch of people in this room are Owners Club, which means they help me run the entire community nationwide, and they benefit from being a leader by buying deals, getting capital, seeing opportunities before other people. So people go, wait, what's Owners Club? Owners Club is somebody who was in sub-2 or is in sub-2 that also wants to help lead and benefit from being in leadership so they can get deal flow, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So sub-2 would be, if you want to find deals, sub-2 would be the right place for you. We have an underwriting Zoom 2 hours every single day, 6 days a week. You'll meet the greatest underwriters on the planet. You'll then become a great underwriter. You'll then be able to call Jennifer and Jordan and say, hey, will you guys take a look at this? And Jordan lives here locally. He'll even go on appointments with you. Like I've been on a dozen appointments with Jordan. I have so much fun hanging out with him. So you'll be able to just do like ride shadow, like be shadow him and go, hey, you got any appointments this week? He'll go, no, not this week. I'm busy with X, Y, and Z. Got any this week? And you guys will hang out and do deals together.
Thanks.
He'll help you probably close the deals actually. Who else works foreclosures? Anybody? The duration of people that actually knock foreclosures is about 10 days, even though your foreclosure process takes about 90 days in Coeur d'Alene. Nobody's knocking after the 10th day. What you'll find is most people will go do sticky notes. They'll watch 5 YouTube videos and get pumped up about it. They'll see the sticky notes and then they'll also have that feeling. And then 2 weeks later, nobody's calling or texting that seller. It's not like that in one city, it's like that nationwide. I did a YouTube video a couple of weeks ago. I've always had this challenge standing for like the last 10 years. I said, if you go knock 100 doors in foreclosure and cannot get a deal, I will pay you 10 grand if you can prove you knocked 100 doors and haven't done a deal. And we have a sub-2 member that got to like his 81st house, and he goes, I'm at 81. He documented, he had the video. Pace, I'm at day 80. I'm on door 79. Knock, knock, knock. He's like recording literally every door. And then on 81st or 82nd house, he made $40,000. And then on house 94, he made 80 grand. And then so it starts cranking, the pipeline starts getting full. You just got to stay with it. Knocking doors is guaranteed, but it's inefficient. If it was me, I would be calling expired listings. I could send a text to all of those sellers. I would do two things. Long days on market, 120 days plus. And I would call those agents and I would start my pipeline. This is exactly how I do it. I would start with two categories. Category one, sellers that are being represented by agents on day 120 up until 180, because that's the beginning of them going into my next pipeline, which is I'm either going to get a deal done with these agents and start building a relationship with the ones I do a deal with, or B, I know which ones are going to fire their agent and they're going to then trickle into my second bucket, which is everybody that fires their agent gets a call from me the next day or a text message from me saying, I'm not a licensed realtor, I'm a buyer. I'd like to give you an offer today on your house. The one thing expired listing sellers do not get is an actual buyer reaching out to them. They get more what reaching out to them. And what are those agents asking for? Let me list your property because the other listing guy that tried for 6 months didn't do a good job.